what is the government doing? Is it safe to assume that they are doing more things than they are going to tell us? But, if we've got nation states that are attacking us, how do we go back at them?
Yeah, so one, this is hard. And it's hard because our adversaries well know that there are protections in place that actually limit the ability of the federal government to go trooping in to the private sector. So that's something that we're going to have to overcome. I really have seen in the last 2 years, last year, the Trump administration, and the first year, the beginnings of the Biden administration, a real focus on this, starting with the Cyber Solarium report, and now with the positioning of people in the White House. But there are things the government needs to do now. They need to get on their horse and really form a focal point. Someone that is responsible for this issue of cybersecurity for the nation. They need to set some security standards. We just don't have them. It's time to put them in place. Probably need to go harder on the deterrence and response, establish some international norms, and we need to be able to get our best players on the field. We'll talk about the limitations of the private sector and information sharing, but we need to really look at how we get our best cyber defenders playing on this private sector field. So I see a lot of activity. I would say the private sector, my companies, really need to put pressure on it and need to be leaders in terms of demanding that we have collective defense, be willing to share information about attacks. Yep, Congress get in there and provide some incentives and protections. But if we don't share all the information we have, the government has too small a soda straw to do all the protection.
Eamon, you've been following this for a very long time, cybersecurity. What do you think about the risk to companies right now and any potential cooperation with government?
Well, it's higher than we've ever seen in terms of the risk, right? I mean, and the cooperation piece is still just not there. A lot of companies are just not disclosing that they've been hit. We know that thousands of companies have been impacted by these recent attacks, but we've only seen, maybe dozens of disclosures of those attacks. So a lot of companies are still hiding the ball from the public, and we're told from the government because of fears of liability, reputational damage, all of those things that business executives are going to deal with. Now, I've actually got a question for Sue because, Sue, we saw a bunch of intelligence officials up on Capitol Hill last week testifying about one of the big problems that they deal with is the fact that the NSA, which is, as you talk about our best cyber troops, those are sort of our best players. They're prohibited by law from looking at U.S. servers because they're designed to look overseas only, and there are good and right privacy reasons why that is. But the bad guys know that, and they've been able to rent servers in the United States from well-known American server farms and launch their attacks from inside the United States. Do we need to either allow the NSA to look inside the United States, which raises a whole bunch of questions, or do we need to have some kind of regulation on those server farms, sort of a know your customer type regulation, the same way we have with banks, saying if you're going to lease out this space, you need to know who you're leasing it out to, and you need to be able to tell the government that you're not selling this space to hackers?
Yeah, Andrew, I think you have it about right. Number one, on the question of NSA being able to have different authorities that allow them to look in the United States, I think that is a really serious question. We need to look at it. In general, I'm opposed to escalating government authorities, but we ought to look at it because it is an unfair fight that we have nation state actors attacking U.S. companies. I also think you're right that we need to get Congress to establish some protections or incentives for the data sharing. And I think one of the considerations is exactly what you said, this know your customer. This really has to be collective defense. There isn't a way for the U.S. government to alone protect this, but shared, we're not doing enough shared work. And I think that's where the government, the Congress, and the companies have got to come together.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.